It's never too late. I've had so many game over moments that I thought, like, I'm done for. It's over. It's never too late to try again, to dream bigger.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Pull up a chair, grab a drink, or settle in wherever you are. It's time for a brand new episode of What You Don't Hear. I am your host. My name is Ross Theisen. If you know me, you know I'm a creative director, a filmmaker, a doer of many, many things. And if you don't know me, well, there you go. But most importantly, what I am for this instance is a podcaster and a guy who loves conversations and amazing stories. And man, is this week's episode a wonderful freaking story. So this week features a conversation I had with musician Heather Evans. And honestly, I'm not sure how to really lay the groundwork for this one. It's a pretty powerful story that Heather shares this week. And I just have to say at the start, big thank you to her for opening up and sharing everything that she does here in this episode, especially with this being like the first time we'd met in person and only our second chat ever. She really gives us a peek into her life in this episode, and it's a story of strength, honestly, to really push through a lot of really big challenges in her life, to keep being a beacon of light, really, for others, really through her music and overall pursuit of just a wonderful life in general. So her energy really shines through in this episode, and I guarantee you that you're going to be feeling the power through this conversation. So enough of me hyping it. This is a wonderful conversation, so let's just dive in. Here it is, episode 37 with the story of Heather Evans. Rain will be an issue. It'll just sound like white noise.
We could say it like, we're getting serenaded by the rain right now.
Yeah, or maybe it just plays a part of the episode. It's a wonderful rainstorm as we calmly collect ourselves in here.
This is a meditative episode.
Yeah, welcome to What You Don't Hear, the sensory episode.
What you actually don't hear is the rain falling. Right now.
What you really don't hear is a huge rainstorm right
Monsoon.
now outside.
Yeah,
well, I mean, noise-wise, I think we'll be able to make it work.
Okay,
Otherwise,
cool.
as long as it doesn't rain so hard that the ceiling collapses on us,
okay.
I think we're good to go.
I think we're okay then.
Cool. We've got some water. We got drinks. We're set and ready to go.
Good vibes. I'm ready.
You ready to make this happen?
I guess. Should we do this?
I think we're going to jump in.
Okay.
So this is it. This is the official. Heather, welcome to What You Don't Hear.
Thank you for having me. So stoked to be here.
I am excited that you were down to do this, given the fact that this is the very first time we're meeting in person ever.
Yeah.
And we've only had one chat via Zoom before this.
Yep.
And which is wild to me.
Yeah, and I already knew I wanted to meet you in person. I got really excited with my hand motions right there. I almost knocked over the microphone.
I'm a hand talker too, so it's cool.
Because I could tell that you're a fellow creative, and just seeing all that you're doing in the video world and podcasting world, I'm like, I gotta know who this guy is.
That's so cool. So. Yes. Well, and that was the cool thing too, is via that Zoom chat we had, we were talking about possibly working together, making some music video stuff. We'll see.
Yeah.
And the fun thing is that I feel like we started to easily chat about tons of other stuff. It wasn't just straight to business, what are the numbers? What's the creative? Let's figure this out. It was hey, and I was hearing bits of your story that you, and obviously I'm not going to spoil it here. I will let you tell it throughout the episode, but some of the things of I'm getting back into music, and here's why, and here's where I've been, and blah, blah, blah. And even just from that Zoom chat, I could tell that you were an absolute joy to talk to. So I was like, I need to get her on the podcast. So I was so excited when you were like, yeah, I'm aware of the podcast, and I'm down to be on. That was the coolest thing.
And I'm not going to lie, the fact that yellow is your power color, red is my power color.
Yes.
So I feel primary colors unite. Here
yes,
we are.
We are making it freaking happen.
Yes.
Here it is, red and yellow coming
Let's
together.
Go.
I love it. So honestly, I just want to start at the very beginning because, again, literally, outside of you make music and we might make something together at some point and create some stuff, I don't know anything about you.
Are you ready to buckle in?
Buckle in. Here we go. I'm bucking in.
It's going to be a roller coaster. Maybe with the harness
Okay,
version.
we'll harness up. We'll harness
we gotta
up.
Harness.
I am down for that.
It's a
I am
roller
ready
coaster ride,
for a
man.
freaking. Listen, if there was ever a show for roller coaster rides, this is the one. So I am freaking ready to take that ride. So take me back. Like, are you like born and raised in Ohio, Columbus? Like, where does it begin?
Yep, I was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
And honestly, I got started with music at a young age because my family was into music. Like, my parents were always singing around a piano. My mom plays piano and sings harmony. My dad has a killer tenor voice, but he's a closet singer. He won't sing out in public, except like when we were kids in church. He would do a solo or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I just learned at a young age, like, how to do harmony, how to sing, and it was just a natural part of our life. And I think almost so much so that I thought it was weird that other families didn't jump in the car and start singing to the radio. Like, that's normal, right? Like, we just jump in and the music's on and we all just start singing together. No, that's not a thing. Just so you know, not every family does that, but my family does that, you know?
Right. So it was kind of like harbored early on of like, hey, we're like fun and creative and we like to enjoy things. So then like as you're growing up, you're like, wait, why are we not all singing on this car ride right now?
Yeah. I'm like looking at other families and thinking, oh, this is supposed to be the norm. I thought every family sings together in the car, but I guess it's just my family.
Right. That's so sick. I love that. Okay, so growing up then, I'm assuming, was the environment you grew up in like very like catering towards creativity?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
My family is so cool. They're entrepreneurs at heart. They started like a cleaning business while I was a kid, and I literally at 12 years old was like helping them with their cleaning business, cleaning buildings at night, because I just wanted to be with them and I could, make some extra money. They're like, hey, we'll pay you a little bit if you want to come with us. And of course I did, and I remember wanting to set a goal for myself to raise enough money to get a Gibson songwriter guitar. And so I think it was 17 years old, I was able to pay for a Gibson songwriter guitar at Guitar Center, paid in full, and it was just the most amazing accomplishment. You know what I mean? As a young kid to have that goal.
Right. So I'm assuming all through school, I mean, clearly the music thing just stuck with you the entire time.
Yeah, so in third grade, this is kind of the genesis, I would say, because I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself when I was younger. I don't really know what happened, but I was just really insecure and down on myself. I think a lot of us go through that in our younger years, but I was really struggling. And in third grade, I started doing poetry. And my teacher, Mrs. Price, she was like, Heather, you should enter that in for this poetry contest. And she actually entered it in for me. I didn't believe in myself enough to do it, but she did it for me. And it ended up winning like the poetry contest in third grade. And I realized, okay, I have this gift for writing. You know what I mean? And whether that be writing short stories or poetry. And then I started to realize, oh, this poetry is actually lyrics. You know what I mean? So in my teenage years, I picked up the guitar as a competition with my sister, my older sister. She started playing guitar first. And then I'm like, oh, if she's playing guitar, then I'm going to play guitar and I'm going to beat her at playing guitar.
Incredible.
And I did. I didn't beat her, but I kept playing after she quit because she was like, this is too hard. Like, I quit guitar. And I just kept playing. And I started putting my poetry that I had in like stacks full of journals, At 12 years old, I started putting together songs for the first time. And I had the opportunity to like perform a song at school. Another teacher believed in me in that way and was like my music teacher. And she was like, Heather, you should, perform this song at our assembly. And I'm like, there's no way I can do that. But I did it because she believed in me. And all like throughout those years, like I was battling so much with self-doubt and insecurities and not feeling good about myself and, gosh, all the things that young teenagers deal with, you know,
Right.
all the depressive vibes. It's so great. But music was the thing that helped lead me out of that. You know what I mean? It gave me a voice that I didn't feel like I had before.
Yeah.
Or that I was afraid to say out loud. But music was that thing that helped me vocalize it.
This could be a silly question because a lot of, just like you've said, so much of growing up for everyone is figuring out who you are, what you are self-conscious about, what you're not self-conscious about, like all, you know, taking those chances, whatever, being in your shell for a super long time. Do you think like you felt that way just because hey, I was just a kid growing up, like that's what we feel? Or was like, have you been able to identify anything outside of that? You're like, you know what, when I look back on it, like, it was kind of this, because I mean, we started your story saying that family is this super creative, fun, let's sing in the car. Like, so where does that like self-doubt come from, especially when you have a creatively enticing environment, but you're still not believing in your creativity, at least at first?
I think that, gosh, I don't even know, because my family was so supportive. I think there's this inner critic or this inner voice that just was telling me I wasn't good enough. And I sort of did look up to my older sister. We're best friends to this day, so don't worry. Anything I say here, she's my best friend.
There's no big twist in this story.
There's no twist. But I saw how she was really good at every single sport that she put her hand to. And me, I was like the ugly duckling, okay? Like, it took me a while to find myself and to be coordinated, and I was just kind of like gangly. I was the tallest girl in my class, so I just felt like I grew so much quicker than everyone, and wasn't good at sports, because sports was the thing, right? Like, I don't know if you remember this, but sports is the thing. And to do music and something outside of sports at that time was weird. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Oh, totally. Yeah.
Or they're like, that's nice, but that's not going to go anywhere. Maybe pick something else. You know what I mean?
Well, especially back then, where now I feel like
Now it's
totally like you could be a YouTuber and you could make your music and all this sort of stuff, and you can have anything on SoundCloud or Spotify tonight.
Right.
Back then, though,
you had to be
like
on a record label.
Yeah, like all that stuff is way more possible, and I think because it's out there so much more, everyone understands, like, oh yeah, if my kid wants to do this creative thing, they can do that. But back in the day, it was just like, oh, you want to play with instruments, like, oh, you're a band kid at school then, and you're not really like, you're not gonna be in a band, you're not gonna like what is that like, and but
great job at the talent show, but
and that
what's your plan?
That was like the height of like, are you doing it for like the talent show or something, or you know, it wasn't viewed as like, oh, you can grow this into something. It totally was like, wait, why aren't you playing football or volleyball or baseball or like
that can't get you a scholarship. And like, well, what if I don't want to go to college? What?
There it is. Yes.
What? And back then, I feel like college was such
for sure
a thing. Now, I don't even know. Maybe it's still a thing.
I mean, I think clear, you know, for sure it's a thing that I think there's still a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, you should go to college. But I think it's way less argued, and I feel like there's a lot more people who are like, you don't have to go to college. And I would argue that there's probably even a higher percentage of people who are like, don't.
Wait until you know what you want to do.
Like, don't go get in debt for no reason, and figure out life, figure out yourself first. And then if you decide a couple of years later that you'd like to go to college, you can at any point in time. You don't have to at 18 years old or whatever, as soon as you graduate high school. Like,
I think I was on that track, you know what I mean, that everybody wants you to run on. I was on this track and everybody was going a certain way, and then all of a sudden I started veering off onto a different track. And it was kind of weird and different, but to me, that was the only way. Like, actually, at 15 years old, my dad bought me studio time at the studio, because he's like, Heather, you have all these songs. I just want to listen to them in the car. I'm like, okay, Dad, I'll record a 3-song CD for you to listen to in the car. And I didn't, like, believe in myself. I don't know. Like, I'm like, okay, I'll do it for you, Dad. And I ended up recording this little 3-song CD, and the people at the studio were like, Heather, this is really good. You should record a whole album here. And so I started cleaning the studio for studio time because my parents, they were the entrepreneurs and had the cleaning company. And so like I was cleaning this studio for studio time and recording a full-length album that I released at 17 years old. And that CD, you guys, like, I'm saying you guys to the world.
Yeah, hey, there's people listening. Listen, it's just me here right now, but people are listening and watching.
I feel like, okay, 17 years old, all these really angsty breakup songs ended up at 18 years old being on MTV's Laguna Beach. And that was a game changer for me. Like 2 of the songs ended up on that show. And then a couple more of those songs ended up on a Nickelodeon teen show called South of Nowhere. And then like an indie film and all this stuff. And this world of music licensing just opened up for me. And I'm like, what is this? I didn't know you could do this. And I started selling albums. I sold like independently, this is crazy, like 2,000 of those albums from those, kids. I felt like it was more of a thing where you'd go and try to find out who the artist was on the show in chat rooms or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it wasn't as easy accessible.
Yeah, and they're like,
everything is
who
now.
was that artist on this scene in this show? And people were like looking for me and looking for the songs. And I sold like 2,000 of these albums. And as an independent artist who was just doing her thing. And I still get royalties from like Laguna Beach to this day. I'm like, are you kidding me?
That's so sick.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a part, because you mentioned that in our meeting that we had before this. You casually mentioned that, and I was like, whoa, like that's wild. So
yeah,
how I feel like maybe I'm jumping a little bit too far ahead, but like how does that even come to be? How do you go from I'm cleaning a studio for studio time, I'm not even that confident in myself yet, but then you record an album, and then getting the album done is one step, but then getting it to start being licensed with places.
I had an incredible team behind me, honestly. Like, there's this guy, Rick Green. He was basically my manager at the time. And he owned this studio where I was recording. And he really mentored me a ton, and got me all these really cool opportunities. And so he was pitching my music to some of these TV shows. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know this was a possibility. So if it wasn't for him, honestly, and he runs now like a production company in town, like for video.
Yeah.
So we've done videos together now that I've like grown up and everything. So funny.
And so that connection with him came from you recording at that studio.
Yep, from the studio.
So it was almost like happenstance of like,
yeah.
Okay, I'm at the place that you were also at.
And you know what? I think something that people need to realize is like, be kind to every single person that you meet. Whenever you're working with people, like, it's got to be about the relationships with people. It can't just be like this transactional thing. It's about the relationships you make along the way. So some of those people that I met in that studio, we're still friends to this day, and have stayed in touch. And they're so excited for my journey, and I'm seeing what they're doing. And it's so crazy. So
in the middle of that, like still sticking in that kind of time frame, like where silly question, but like, where's your self-confidence level at? Are you starting to find yourself a little bit more? Because I mean, when you get into teenage years, high school, like that's when everyone is like, what am I doing? Who am I? Like, so
I was still a hot mess, but you know what? Thank goodness for music, like I said again, to help me through all that time, because I was actually in a really abusive relationship at like maybe 15 to 17. So in that time while I was recording that CD, and some of those songs are like really deep breakup songs, but it was more of like psychological abuse. And he was older than me and was very manipulative and angry, so angry. And so that did not help. Let's just say that right here. It did not help with my self-confidence, because I already felt like not good about myself. And then with that voice added in, it like tanked me, And so I don't feel like I handled that whole situation well, like with the fame. It wasn't even anything.
I mean, it was something. It
wasn't even anything. I don't feel like I handled it very well, or I just like let it drop because I couldn't handle it. I don't know. I wasn't ready at that time because I was young, and like you've seen all the young artists who've made it way too soon and they just like crash. You know what I mean? Crash and burn. And so I took some time, honestly. I took some time after that whole breakup and situation. I probably took like a year of not dating, really not doing much music, maybe recording things here and there, but I was like, no, I'm not going to do anything. And I think a year later, I met my husband, Brett. And Brett is the coolest guy you will ever meet. I feel like you guys could be best friends or something. I don't know.
I love it.
And he is so kind. He's everything that bad relationship wasn't. You know what I mean? It was such a redemptive experience dating him. And he like encouraged me and was like fully supportive of my dreams where this other person wasn't, And so I feel like that was it started some healing in me a little bit, just like being in that really good relationship and then finding my way in music. And I felt like it wasn't till I moved to California, probably 5 years ago, until I really found it. Can you imagine? So, like, found myself, and it sounds dumb. I don't know. I was probably 29 at the time, had 2 kids. I had some other tragedies happen along the way. I'm like, dang it. That sort of like crippled me again. So it was almost like the world was just like knocking me down one bit at a time to where I felt like I was buried. You know what I mean? Like a seed. And just in darkness and really sad and depressed. We lost our first child. And that's what this Lily is actually, because we actually lost her on Easter Sunday. And it was a miscarriage, so it was like right at the point where you could start telling people that you're pregnant. We told everyone, dang it. But in a way, that was a good thing because people knew and they could see into our lives and like walk with us along in the darkness. You know what I mean? We didn't have to walk by ourselves. But that just like crippled me. I think for 8 months, I was just depressed and didn't want to do anything, didn't want to get up out of bed, just was struggling. I was like, this was the thing, I was going to commit my whole life to, and now it's gone. I don't know what I'm doing. I just felt aimless. And then I actually wrote a CD. Can you imagine me writing music about the trauma that I've been through? I wrote Out of the Woods, and it's talking about coming out of the woods of anxiety and depression and addiction. And it's like out of the woods, just like how the doctors say, you're not out of the woods yet. But at a certain point, I felt like I was coming out of the woods. I wasn't quite there yet, but I'm coming out of it. I'm seeing the hope on the other side of this. And I also wrote an album for parents who've lost children called Songs for Healing. And so I used the pain that I was going through to try to help other people get out of their pain. You know what I mean? I'm like, this can't be for nothing. This can't be for no reason. Like, this isn't just for us. Like, so many people go through this in darkness and alone and don't have anyone to talk to about it. Maybe if they listen to my CD, they'll get a little bit of comfort. And I did start getting messages from people of like, I've been so depressed, but hearing your music has helped me, see clearly for the first time, or like have hope and be able to get up out of bed. And I'm just like, oh, it's so good,
Yeah. Wow. Okay. My
That
goodness.
was a lot. I'm
many,
so sorry.
I
That
know.
was so much.
But
it's all part of the story, right?
Yes, exactly. And so I'm just trying to figure out, like, okay, like, which part do I want to dive into it? And I think, like,
it's not even over, bro. I'm gonna say it. So tragic.
The most fascinating part to me is that you let music be this figurative guiding light.
It was.
That stuck. It was your
literally
constant through everything. Because I think a lot of people don't let themselves find that constant or find that thing that they enjoy or find that, I don't know, whatever it may be, like that can kind
anchor.
of, yes. It's like, hey, okay, this really bad thing is happening right now, but at least I've got this thing to kind of lean into or this thing to go to. And it's so interesting in a way that you never, I don't know, let music, like even if you took a break from it or whatever, you went to it.
I still wrote songs. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, right. You still like went back to it of like, no, I know that this is where my, comfort or uncomfort zone in ways, is, and this is my anchor. This is my constant. So it's so interesting that there was never a point because, I mean, you said we haven't even got to like the half of it, but like already there are things that just like, I don't think anybody would blame you if you were like, hey, I'm not going to focus on this music thing anymore. No one's going to be like, how dare you?
Yeah,
exactly.
Like take some time, Heather.
No, I feel like somebody would be like, hey, okay, whatever you need to do, do that.
Yeah.
And okay, so I'm trying to figure out like which part I kind of want to dive back into because I'm sure that happens over a span of years. I mean, we left off at high school and then there's moving to California and everything else. Like,
yeah. So I think, like I was saying, all these hard situations, they compound, right? Like being in that bad relationship, it formed my self-talk. And then losing our first child, it left me in this state of depression where I was just like a zombie walking around life. You know what I mean? And then we finally get pregnant again. And my son, Trust, that's his name, Trust. And I end up having something that only like 0.2% of pregnancies get, where it's like extreme nausea and vomiting, hyperemesis. I don't know. Nobody really knows what it is, but I experienced it, and I couldn't like see light, lift my head, move around, look at anything without throwing up or have anything touch my mouth. I would just like start throwing up violently. And so I was in the hospital and, pretty much my whole pregnancy I was on medication and fluids, and I was just by myself in a room. And the only thing I could do, because I couldn't watch TV because it made me sick, I was just like tormented, I feel like, for 9 months. All I could do was just sing songs in my head and like songs of comfort and like just sing to myself in that dark room, in that dark space, and that dark headspace. And so I end up having Trust, and I have like a really traumatic birth experience that I know, it's so terrible. But I have a really traumatic birth experience where, he almost dies. I'm in like shock, from all of the craziness that happens with birth. And then they send me home from the hospital twice, and I'm in congestive heart and lung failure. They didn't know. They're just like, you're just feeling bad post having a child. I'm like, I can guarantee you, when I close my eyes, I feel like I'm not going to wake up. Like, I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. There's something wrong, And thankfully, that third time we went back to the hospital, the doctor called it out and was like, there's something not right, Call her husband, because my husband was at home with Trust, baby Trust. And he was like, call her husband, have him come now. This could be the last time that he gets to talk to his wife. And I'm hearing all this, and I'm sort of done at that point, like, because I'm just like, I've been through all this hard stuff, and I was kind of like ready to go, because I was just exhausted, and I hadn't slept in, days because I was afraid to go to sleep. And so I'm laughing, but it's not funny. It's just like I have to,
Of course,
laugh through
this
it.
is
Like,
this is so unbelievable.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I end up like pulling through, but it was like days in the hospital, like couple weeks actually, I think. But and I just wasn't right after that. I was not well. And I get through all of that, but I have post-traumatic stress from everything I went through. So I'm going to counseling and just like walking through all of this with a counselor and deep diving in with her. And I finally feel like I can see a pregnant person without shaking and being triggered, and like walking in a hospital without breaking down into tears because of the trauma, And I think it was like that week that I was done with counseling that I find out this was like 4.5 years after having trust. So it took me a long time, right, to get there. And I find out that I'm pregnant with Story, my daughter, and I go through it all again. Minus the traumatic pregnancy or delivery. The delivery was great. It was like very redemptive, but I have a very like traumatic pregnancy again. But my mindset was different going in because I had already walked through it and I knew I could do it again. And I knew the strength that was in me. I'm like, okay, if I've done it once, I can do it again. And the end result is worth it. Trust was worth it. He's such a joyful, intuitive, kind boy that I know he's supposed to be in this world. You know what I mean? And all the I don't know, dark forces or whatever you want to call it, that were trying to stop him from being here. I know he's supposed to be here because he's going to make a difference. And even his life story, story and trust, it's a story of trust. And that's what I get to walk out. You know what I mean? And my life is kind of like a miracle now from here on out. And my music is so much more impactful going through that. I have more of a purpose and a point to what I'm doing, where when I was a teenager, I didn't get it. But now I'm I got to live every day to the fullest because tomorrow is not promised. You know what I mean? It's not.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
That was a lot. I'm sorry.
No, it is incredible. And I appreciate you sharing all of this. You were not lying when you were yeah, there's some stuff to talk about. My goodness.
And you don't
okay,
know, right? We don't know the stories people are walking around with. I don't know your story, but I would love to hear your story. But
man, okay. So there are just, again, so many things that I want to get your perspective on. And because I feel there's so many things that you're saying that if anybody listening to that is having a comparable thing or anything, I'm okay, we need to uncover your perspective going through these things because now, luckily, you're still here.
I'm still here.
We have the benefit of hindsight. So we can look back and be here's what I've learned from these things. So, we've told the entire story. We know everything is now okay.
Yep.
During that time period, even if it's after first pregnancy or in the middle of second when everything is going crazy, oh
my gosh.
I mean, what is going through your mind day to day? Are because of course you're just trying to stay alive. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I know you said you're all I could do was hum songs in my head and everything, but and I'm asking this not for you to be well, step by step, every day I did this to keep myself sane. I'm more so asking because whenever I'm listening,
there was a step by step,
right. Whenever I'm listening to stories, I always feel someone's this crazy time frame happened, and then they move on, and I'm always I want to know how you felt every day during that time period, because I'm sure maybe some days were worse than others. Some days you were I've got this. And I'm sure there was other days where you're I don't got this.
Yeah. I think it was definitely a roller coaster. Like we said in the very beginning, it was a roller coaster ride. And I didn't know what it was going to look like day to day. And I didn't know how I was going to feel day to day. And that was really scary. And have this analogy that is now a song, which is so cool, and it just came out, and it's so epic. It's called The Monster, and it's literally about my inner critic. How our inner critic is the scariest thing. Our inner voice can be the scariest thing. It's not the monsters that live under our bed, or we feel like live under our bed. It's the monster that's inside. And I felt like my inner critic beat me up so hard in those times that the only way through that was like community, surrounding myself with a good community that could be a sounding board that was like, Heather, you're strong, you're amazing, you made it through that. Like my counselor, oh my gosh, she got me through. My family, my husband, just the people that cared about me really pulled me through that dark time. And then also like my faith, man, like if I'm being real, I was praying every single day, like, God, help me. Like, do you see me? Do you care about me? Like, where are you? And though not every time, like, I felt good or like the Lord's with me or whatever, you know, how super spiritual people are, I felt this like peace in it all, peace in the storm, that it was going to be okay. And so it's like I had to battle that inner critic and that monster, that voice that said, you know, whatever, like you're not going to make it through. Or even now where I'm taking some of those insecurities off of me, I'm trying to flick the monster off my shoulder. The moments where the monster says, you're not good enough to do music, you know, you're better off, you know, just being a mom or whatever, which is great. I'm not saying being a mom is amazing, but I know that I'm more than that I have more to give to the world than, you know, only being a mom. But I feel like I'm a mother to a lot of people and to musicians. Like I feel like musicians are my people and who I want to invest in because I know the struggles and how hard it is. So I don't know, just like battling that inner critic every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I fail at fighting it, but most days I do well. Sometimes I let the monster beat me up, and sometimes I beat up the monster and corner it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But,
and I think that's a great analogy and a great comparison because everybody has that monster.
Now, my monster's really cute and fuzzy, though. It's like...
That's great.
Very cute, but super annoying and a little itchy.
Incredible. That's I love that. I love that. I also love the idea that, you know, you're saying you're even like flicking the monster off your shoulder. That to me even says something that like, hey, the monster's there, but it's actually small enough just that it sits on my shoulder and I can flick it away.
Yeah, it sounds really loud and scary, but it's not.
But it's actually not. It's actually way smaller than, you know, when you're walking down the hallway, you see its shadow on the wall. It looks gigantic. When you actually get up there, you realize it's this puny little thing that actually isn't as big of a deal as you thought it was. Like It is not as vast and evil and powerful as a monster.
It's so
that you thought it was.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to ask, and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about, but I am very interested because I have no idea. And I also think that if anybody's listening to this, it is incredibly powerful to hear your explanation of losing first pregnancy. Mm-hmm. After that. I literally, and I'm asking this not for the sake of like, tell me some cool things, but more so I cannot fathom what that is like. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So like, if you want, like walk me through like that, you know, the first experience of gearing up for motherhood and all that sort of stuff. And then, you know, what happens.
Gosh, I think we were really stoked, right? Like you start heading your life in a certain trajectory and planning ahead for the future, and the future looks so bright. And I think a miscarriage is a lot like a dream that just gets cut off. You know what I mean? And like a lifelong dream, because you're planning like this little person that you're going to follow the rest of their lives, you know, and you're planning all these moments. And that just gets taken from you. And like where I can picture it in my head right here. Like bright and shiny, the future, you're seeing it all play out like on a beautiful, screen. And then all of a sudden the picture just goes dark. And you're sitting alone in darkness. And miscarriages are such a shameful thing in this culture to talk about. People don't even announce that they're pregnant until 12 weeks because it's very common that you'll have a miscarriage. But all these women are walking through this alone, and men too. My husband, he was like, what? I didn't even know this could happen. You know what I mean? Because nobody talks about it, and I didn't know. I'm like, I just think you get pregnant and then you have the baby. It's glorious, easy process. You see people smiling and happy, and it always works out. But you don't hear from the people where it doesn't work out. And I think us sharing our stories out loud, where it gives other people freedom to come forward and say, hey, I went through that too. You're not alone. You know what I mean? I felt so alone walking through that because I didn't know anyone who had been through that. And some older women came to me and they're like, I've never told anyone, but I had a miscarriage too. And I just felt so sad for them that they couldn't say anything because it was shameful. I'm like, when did this become shameful? It's so sad, And so that Songs for Healing CD was a big deal because I actually did some videos 9 years later because I couldn't do it in the moment. It was too fresh. I revisited the project and did some videos along with it that are like, child loss related, and they're really beautiful. And one is, it's not child loss, but like spouse loss, but it's the same like grief. It's capturing the grief. And it's really beautiful, very film-like, And I wanted people to know that they weren't alone in their grief,
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I know I'm jumping all over the place.
No, I love it.
But
it's great. I'm tracking with you.
Is all of this happening when you've moved to California? Is this here?
No, some of it was here. Yeah. Okay. So I recorded the album here.
As a teenager.
No, not as a teenager.
In this
as a
time frame.
Like, young adult. I don't even know how old I was. Maybe 25.
Okay, I thought you were mentioning the
21. Maybe I was 21. No, I think Trust was born, so like 23. So I couldn't even do it until after Trust was born. But I had all these songs.
Yeah.
But I just let them sit because I couldn't do anything with it. I couldn't think about it. I'm like, I don't want to touch it. I'm going to get emotional. And I was very emotional when I was recording them. But the guy I was recording with was so cool and sensitive to the emotion of the album. And I think he brought that in. And he plays like classical guitar. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. And so I recorded that here when I was like 23. And then it wasn't maybe till 9 years later out in California that we shot the videos for that project because like I said, I couldn't do it. I'm like, I literally can't do this. You know what I mean? Emotionally, I couldn't do it. But I was ready, you know what I mean? When we moved out to California and scripted it all out. Because that's actually a passion of mine, is like to co-direct videos and to write scripts, because I do love storylines so much. And so like one of the videos, it's this mother who has this tree and a shovel, and she's like going to plant the tree, but as she's digging this deep hole, it's like she's crying into the hole, and it represents like this pit of grief, you know, that she's going through. And she's planting the tree, and then she's covering it with the dirt, and then she sits there and is looking up at it, you know, this hope that she had, you know. And I don't know, it's just really emotional and cool. You have to watch it. It's deeper still.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but it was emotional. Let's just put it that way. Like even the actress on that, she was like full out crying. It was so crazy.
Wow.
Oh.
That is, but again, it's like, I love that even out of the worst things, you still found something to kind of like readjust that energy into.
Yeah.
And it's effectively created something new.
And you know what? We have to do that. We have to tell our stories. Like my daughter's name is Story Joy, we have to tell our stories, even the scary parts of our stories, because there's so many people walking around in darkness because they feel like they're alone and they're the only one, but they're not. Like I'm there, I can hopefully be a guiding light to say, hey, it's going to be okay. It's not going to be easy, but you're going to get through it,
And that's like, not to like derail us even into another like rabbit hole sort of thing, but like that's even why like I want to do this show.
Yeah.
That is like the point of this show. It's not just to like sit and hear myself talk or, hey, come on and do a Q&A about your new album or your new video, whatever it is. It's like that's why I think it's so important to capture people's stories.
Yeah.
Because again, in the theme of the show, the title, what you don't, there are so many sides of people's stories that we do not get to hear.
People look at my Instagram, right? Like they see a joyful, happy, full of life person, but what they don't hear and what they don't see behind the scenes, all I've had to walk through to get to that point. It's crazy. Like my story is so crazy. It's like the tip of the iceberg. And I only have this joy because of, I don't know, the hope that I found along the way. And that the journey, like even in the valleys, there's these really sad valleys, but there's these beautiful mountaintops where you see the whole view panoramic and you're like, this was worth it. This was all worth it. And I gave up music, you know what I mean, in that whole time, because you heard how dramatic my life was, like woven in. So for a hot second, like a couple times, I took some major breaks. And I literally said, whenever I was pregnant with both my kids, this is it. I'm done with music. I'm done as an artist. There goes my dreams. Bye. See you. But I think I'm like the comeback kid that doesn't know when to quit. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So when we moved to California, I gave up music for a year because I had just had Story Joy, my little cutie. And I'm like, I'm going to take a year and just be, because I get really sick after having both babies, have thyroid issues, and I'm still dealing with all that, but it's okay. I'm going to get through it. But I took a good year break and picked it up. I had this idea to create this 3-song CD with a guy who the only person I knew that recorded music in town. I'm like, he's going to record it. And I didn't have any money to do it or anything, but I was just like, it's going to work. I just know it's going to work. This is my comeback moment, trying to be positive. And my grandma, who was like the matriarch of our family, she ended up passing away in that time, and I got to fly back and like be with my family, and there's this beautiful video of us all singing together as a family with all the harmonies. I'm like, this is my family, people. But I'm like, she would have loved hearing that. But she left me the exact amount of money that I needed to record that project. I literally like sent up a prayer. I was like, Jesus, if you're real, I'm going to need you to make something happen here. And I know my grandma was listening. She's like, Heather, got you. So I was literally like, we're doing this. I'm doing this crazy dream, recording 3 songs. That doesn't sound like much, but it's a lot of money to record. And to record professionally, like broadcast quality, ready for streaming platforms and whatnot. And I also decided I'm going to try to get my songs on TV shows again, because remember my Laguna Beach triumphs? I'm like, I'm going to try that again. I don't know anyone anymore, but let's try. Obviously, it worked back then. I think it could work again. And so I just started sending emails out after I'd finished the CD and released it to my small group of listeners, I started sending out emails like relentlessly. I had an eye twitch, I think, at one point. I sent out maybe, I don't know, 150 emails individually to music licensing companies, and I only heard back from one. And that was the one that got my songs onto So You Think You Can Dance, Disney's Fairy Tale Weddings, Dancing with the Stars Jr. twice. So it was like the doors started opening up again. And I'm like, okay, I should have quit so many times along the journey, right? But I'm so glad that I didn't. You know what I mean? I'm glad I persisted and I didn't give up. And I started to find myself in California and like find my own voice. And I felt fully healed up and like ready to take on the world. I knew who I was finally. And like, I used to think I was small and insignificant like a mouse. And I saw this picture, my friend, she was like, Heather, you see yourself as small and insignificant like a mouse, but I see you as a lion, as strong and brave, and you have a voice. You have something to share with the world. And I'm like, okay. Yep, I can get that lion vibe, you know? And so I actually had my friend make a painting of like a shadow of a mouse, like in this, but the back of it is a lion. So it's seeing itself like a small little mouse, but it's actually a lion. Like so many times we walk around life not knowing who we are. And I didn't know who I was for so long. It took me till I was like 30 years old, dang it, to find my voice and be confident in who I was and to do what I'm supposed to do. You know what I mean? And even in Sacramento, I started the Sacramento Songwriter Circle, which like was a community of musicians and a music showcase and like a podcast, the Songwriter Circle podcast, and started interviewing other musicians, found out that other musicians felt the same way I did. So I was able to give that encouragement to them where they felt small, like I could speak into them. And then they started finding their voice. And it was just like so cool. And so, yeah, here I am today. I maybe 2 years ago, started writing and recording and releasing a song a month for like the past 2 years for music licensing. And recently I've had like an MTV featured artist spot where I'm on all the platform, like all their social media platforms. And I'm like, I'm on the up and up. Here we go. 34. Woo! It's never too late, people.
That is so cool. Okay.
Full circle moments in there everywhere. I'm sorry. That was so much information.
No, it's amazing. It is freaking okay, I also need to say this. I hope we continue to build a friendship and stay friends because I'm about to come to you whenever I'm feeling down on myself.
Come to me. I got you. I'll flick off your monster. Like, get out of here.
Yes. I'm going to be like, Heather, the monster showed up again and it might be small, but it feels pretty big. Like, I need you to I just need you to just say stuff to me because like, man, so much of what you're sharing is like not only incredibly valuable for somebody to hear, but it's also just like amazing to hear your point of view on so many of these things of pushing through and figuring things out and being down but not out and then getting back up and moving to the next thing. And even, not comparable to other parts of your story, but even the part of, hey, I just relentlessly sent out tons of emails with my music and get an eye twitch because I'm just staring at these emails all the time and just sending them like, that even in a minuscule way is something that a lot of artists, and I'm guilty of this as well, of like always having that battle of like, I feel so weird if I'm emailing a bunch of people. Like, am I being fake? Like, should I just naturally let somebody find me? Like, oh my gosh, it's so difficult. But like,
so true.
And then you did that. And then the one that answered is the thing helped reignite that spark, that flame, that whatever, where you were like, oh wait, yeah, I am doing this and I'm going to keep doing this.
Yep.
And that is just
one door. can change everything. One person believing in you can change everything. And it did for me, you know?
I really want to hear your perspective on this. Like, so when it comes to gaining confidence or pushing through a hard time or whatever it is, or even creating something or following a dream or a goal, how much of it do you think, and I'm literally just going to ask it in a bland way and let you freaking whimsically walk us through the most motivating thing ever, because I know you're going to.
Let's go.
How much of it is self-belief, and then how much is it outside forces of telling you either you can or cannot do something, and then like the mechanics of inside taking that and doing something with it? Because there's a lot of people who I think you can hear somebody tell you that you can't, and then you are then going to take that in your own inside voice and be like, you're right, I can't. Other people hear that and they're like, no, I can. And I just think there's magical mix in there. Yeah. But you have, in a way, figured that out so many different times, whether it's your own inside voice saying, nope, you can't do this, you're not worthy of this, you're done, it's over. Even when your body is physically failing you, you still found a way to be like, no, I'm going to figure this out. I said I was going to ask this question very simply, and here I am ranting
No, I love
away.
it.
So
oh my gosh.
Take that however you will and do with it whatever you will. Self-belief, believing in yourself. What's the magical juice inside to make that happen?
I literally wrote a song, and it's not released or anywhere out there, because so many musicians wrestle with this, with the self-doubt and believing in themselves. So I wrote the song called Believe in Yourself for my music community, because I just saw that a lot. But then I realized, oh my gosh, this is for me too. And the lyrics are, you were made to stand out just like a billboard sign. Everyone that passes by notices your light. So don't you hide away your light. You are made to shine bright. I believe in you. It's time to believe in yourself. And it's like, hey, darling, you can be brave, to stand out on your own and not be afraid. I believe in you. Believe in yourself. And so I needed to hear that, I think, for myself, and like so many of the musicians in the community I was in needed to hear that message as well. But it really does have to start from the inside out. And it's not a fake self-talk. You know what I mean? I think a lot of times we could be like, because I tried, Ross. I tried before all that. Like every time I would step up to the microphone, I would feel so insecure or worried or shaky up until that point. Up until I found out I was a lion, there was a mental shift. And I don't even know what it was. Maybe it was like a spiritual thing, like a spiritual shift of like, I'm a lion. So anytime I start thinking of myself as small and insignificant with no voice, I'm going to remind myself that I am a lion. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a lion. I have something to say. My voice matters. I can be brave. In the moments where maybe I don't feel so brave, like I'm going to choose to be brave. Like standing in front of 5,000 people and the President of the United States, President Barack Obama, to sing the national anthem at one of his rallies. Like, I should have said no to that, but I chose to say yes because I knew it was going to push me to be a lion, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and break out of your comfort zone, right?
And break out of my comfort zone. And you have to remove all of your excuses, because musicians, we're really good at making excuses of why we can't do something. I don't have the money. I don't have the resources. I don't have the time. Okay, I am a mom with 2 kids. I don't have very much money, but I make it happen. Like if there's something that is burning in your heart, there are ways to make it happen and to be creative, and don't let your limitations stop you, but be creative. Use your creative energy to make the opportunity possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, get rid of the excuses. I hate that.
There's
no excuse.
So let's even talk about the balance of motherhood with all of this stuff. So I'm not a parent. I don't have a child. I'm of course not a mom. Walk me through Because I have, and I'm sure as you've seen,
I'm so busy.
There's tons of stories, tons of people who are always like, well, I was going to do this until I had a family. And then it was switched to the quote unquote real world. And I don't have time for all these things. You're
that
still
makes
doing
me
it.
so sad
Yeah.
when I hear that, honestly. Because, I mean, I know some people, that's great. And you know what? Live your best life. I'm not saying, family shouldn't be important. But I think that my kids need to see me living out my dreams so that they can know they can live out theirs when they're adults. And right now, my son wants to be a director. And you know what? I am not going to question that dream. I'm going to say, hey, what can I do? Just like my parents did for me. They never questioned me. They never hassled me to go to college. Like, Heather, what do you want to do? Music. Okay. What do you need to do to prepare yourself to get there? All right, let's do that, And I think my kids need to see me living out these dreams in my head. You know what I mean? So that they can see that they can do it too. And let me tell you, they have come with me on every photo shoot that me and my husband have done. They've come with me on every video shoot. Well, not every video shoot. Some of the really serious ones, they've just popped in on. But they're seeing their mom do the stuff. They come to my gigs, and they're super cool kids. So I don't know. They don't even think it's a big deal. You know what I mean? Like, mom's got another song.
They're just like, yeah,
it's just
mom.
A part of life, yeah.
That's mom. That's what she is.
It's normal. We've made it so normal that they don't even question it. And I just look for the windows of opportunity too. As far as being busy, look for your windows of opportunity. So my windows are when they're at preschool or at school, or at night, late at night, when everything's really peaceful and quiet. That's when I record demos or record final vocals on a song. So you just get creative with your time. And my husband's really supportive. He's like, yep, this is what you're supposed to do. Go for it. You know what I mean?
I feel like even some of what you're do you think some of what you're explaining is kind of that the cliche saying of in order to truly love someone else, you have to love yourself first, because you're kind of setting that precedent of you're making sure that of course you're taking care of your family and you're being the most loving
present.
mom.
I want to be
yes,
present.
You're being present.
Yeah.
But you're also keeping yourself individually happy. I don't know, maybe I'm taking too deep of a dive here. And again, I'm not a parent, so tell me dude, you're explaining it wrong. But in my mind, I feel like when you become a parent or you have a family or whatever it is, a lot of your existence, of course, is now to build this foundation for this family and keep the family going. So you lose your actual identity. You maybe lose who you are and what you truly enjoy. And it's just we eat dinner at 6 and I'd rather do this, but we have to do this, rather than finding the balance of those things, of not even just time, but just energy, bandwidth, love, even of still finding time to do things for you, whether that's yoga or working out or eating healthy or whatever, and not getting caught up in that I have to go to work and then I have to do family things and I have to do this, and that's just it. It's too freaking difficult. You're still making sure that you love you.
That makes me so sad. See, Ross, I can't shut it off. So it interweaves into everything that I do, like the music does. It's woven into everything. I mean, you should see me while I'm doing dishes. I'm writing songs, and I'm like, oh, crap, get the voice memo, record something really quick. I'm like, that was sick. I'm going to record that super quick.
I love that.
And, or me and my daughter, one day we were singing this really catchy tune. We just started singing. I don't know, after school, the bell was ringing, and we were and it was Friday. And we just start singing, I got that Friday feeling. And I'm like, oh, that's a hook story. Come on. I'm like, get your phone. I got to get my phone out. So you could hear the school bell ringing in the background of us singing, I got that Friday. I'm like, that's so good.
That's amazing. That's so good.
So it's a part of everything that we do. And it's not weird, or while I'm getting ready in the morning, I'm I come up with some of my best song concepts in the morning. I'm like, dang it, why morning?
That's that's also a time where no one wants to be doing what they're doing most of the time.
Yeah. So most of my song ideas come in those little windows, and I have my voice memo ready, and then I'll come back to it when I have time. And there's some co-writers I'm working with on Zoom that I know this is the time that we're doing our co-write, so this is the window of opportunity I have. So I only have an hour to come up with the best song of my life. It usually happens in 20 minutes, so don't worry about it.
Incredible.
But it's so stressful. I'm like, oh, I have to have an hour to create this amazing song. And it usually, happens, but it's so fun.
Okay, so, looking at all of this stuff, and I don't even know if we've still only scratched the surface of things, if there's still so much to dig into, but even looking at the story abroad so far, I would love to hear your advice on, so if somebody's listening or watching, and maybe they're in some of these circumstances, maybe they're kind of losing that light a little bit, or they're not, they're trying to balance family or real life, or they're and to be completely honest with you, as everybody grows older, you start seeing people become real adults and they have families and all that sort of stuff. So it's
do I need to do this?
Getting to the age that I'm seeing all my friends and they're having kids or they're getting married and doing these things, and there's times where I'm how much of a black sheep am I? I'm so on the outskirts of this, but at the same time, that's a whole other conversation. But the point I'm getting to is when I'm talking to them, there's often that thing that we were talking about where they're like, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of just going to focus on the family thing now. And I really will. It's cool that you get to do your thing, but I can't. And I'm always like, no, but you can. I
just want to shake them. I want to shake them.
Yes, and you can. And I know I'm being super specific with the family thing, but in general, if someone were listening to this and they're listening to your story and they're listening to all these things.
Maybe the 9 to 5 job, they're like, I got my 9 to 5. When do I have time?
Yes, the classic, I don't have time, or realistically, I don't have the mental capacity to even focus on this, because you wake up sometimes, you have a bad day, and you're like, I don't know what I could think of today. There's some days I can't think of one idea.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Nope.
And then there's other days where I cannot stop. And that doesn't mean that those are good or bad days. It's just this constant up and down. What is it you would say to somebody who's listening who is I don't know if I found my purpose, or I don't know if I have time, or I don't know, maybe they don't have that exact creative outlet and they just sort of feel lost and low on energy. What are you saying to that person?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think something that helps me with that is when I'm feeling low on that creative energy, I'm just stuck in the loop of this 9 to 5 life. You know what I mean? I think getting out of your normal circumstance is a good idea. When we were in California, we got to go to the beach and the redwoods and all these beautiful adventures, Lake Tahoe. Tomorrow, I'm going to Old Man's Cave on a hike and we're just going to enjoy nature. There's something so restorative about nature that, I don't know, it resets me creatively. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I feel so refreshed. Maybe it's the vitamin D. Okay, that's probably what it is. Or I'm like, I could do anything, And it's just that out of the ordinary, getting out of the ordinary. I think here in Columbus, it's really easy to hole up in our houses because it's rainy, it's gloomy. It's not as easy to get out of our normal 9 to 5. Or maybe instead of doing something creative, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be creative. So maybe instead of being creative, do something not creative, like watch a movie that inspires you, or go to a show, go to a live performance where you're not performing if you're a musician. That's something for me. I love seeing live music. Or just anything that inspires you. Doing a puzzle. I love doing puzzles. I don't know. It's very mind-numbing and monotonous. And I enjoy that because sometimes I am so overwhelmed with life with kids, and I do have a part-time job, and I'm doing music, and I'm just pulled in 5 different ways. But if I could have one task that I can just do mind-numbingly, it really helps. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. That's some of the things that help me is just do something that isn't pressure-y to be creative. Because when we put that pressure on ourselves, it's just not going to happen. You know?
Yeah, I love it. I want to get your thoughts on the idea of not being able to turn your brain off. Because I can't remember if it was when we were recording or if it was before we were recording. We were kind of, we mentioned that of like, I just like can't turn it off. And like
in a good way.
Yes. And it's like, I feel like that is a blessing and a curse. And I don't know if you ever feel like that, but like there are days, we said this earlier, where like, as dumb as this may sound, like as much as I love creating and I love coming up with ideas, like there's only so many ideas that you can make even in just 24 hours or in the world in general. And there are so many times where I have this inner war.
Yeah.
Where I am just like, why can't you just stop?
I know.
Why can't you just not think of an idea or not get excited when someone shares an idea with you and then want to freaking help them figure it out and let's do this and let's do that and blah, blah, blah. And like, it's awesome, but it is the most like difficult thing. I feel like often I am in a car and there's like a brick tied to the gas pedal and I'm like, I can't, like the brakes aren't working. Can I just slow this down a little bit? Like, whoa, like this is insane because again, there's half of it that's awesome. I love being able to just like come up with things and be like, here's the plan for it. And luckily I have the skills of like, Photoshop and photography and video. And like, I can design an idea that's in my head in 5 minutes. Like
that's amazing.
That's fun. But I'm also like, it would just be awesome to not even think of the idea in the first place. I know that sounds so dumb and it sounds like oddly selfish, but like we mentioned that earlier. And so like, how do you deal with that? Like, how do you like balance the whole, like,
okay,
I can't shut my brain off.
You want me to tell you what it is? Because
Please.
I was like that. I mean, I was doing 500 things, I think, in California. Songwriter Circle, hosting the Songwriter Circle, had a podcast, playing live music, kids, family, everything. It was too much. And I had to whittle it down, or I call it like a cone filter. It's like a coffee filter. What's your why? And if those things are lining up with your why, don't do them. Just say no. The most powerful thing you can say is no. Which is the hardest thing for me to say because I get jazzed up too and I get excited for people and I'm just like, I'm the same way. I get so charged up by other people's ideas and I'm like, how can I help you? And so I don't know if you've heard of the Enneagram test, but I'm a 7, so I can be like super spontaneous and excited and enthusiastic and stuff. But I can like sometimes take on too much and it wears me out. You know what I mean? So knowing yourself, knowing how you're wired, and knowing that like, hey, if I take on too much, I'm going to just like fizzle out, and only do the things that line up with what I'm supposed to be doing. Even if it sounds like a great idea, what am I supposed to be doing?
I feel like I've been learning that a lot just in the last couple of years because when you're first starting out, especially being creative and like me taking the path of like wanting to be self-employed and all that sort of stuff and then making that work for a while, you're just like, I'm saying yes to everything. It doesn't matter if it doesn't pay well. It doesn't matter if it's a terrible job that doesn't align with me and my values or anything. I just need to say yes. I need to take on everything. And then hopefully you can kind of dwindle those, get through those things and start to get, specific with your time and energy. But, for so long, I was just like, I'm just creating things. I'm creating everything. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to say yes and say yes and say yes. And it's like...
And then you might wear yourself out creatively, too.
Yes. And just in the last couple of years, I feel like... And this might be silly to say, but I feel like every couple months, I level up.
Yes.
Like, I feel like I am... And I know somebody can hear that and be like, that sounds so cocky, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, no.
Good.
Like,
you should be.
I feel like I am constantly changing. I am literally constantly evolving. Like, somebody could have a conversation with me 3 months ago, and a lot of my values and my ideas might still be there, but maybe how I handle those things now are different. Yeah. Because I have evolved the way that I'm thinking or feeling about that thing or how I would do it.
That's amazing.
To where now... Like you said, it's figuring out your why and then figuring out do these things I want to do fit into that?
Match up.
And I think an extra layer that I've like tried to focus on when it gets into like even creative business and stuff like that is like delegation and understanding that.
Oh my gosh, get a freaking team.
Yes.
You don't have to carry it all.
And
yeah, I just figured that out too.
Yes, I was stuck on that, even though there's always been people around who help with things in a team and blah, blah, blah. But like, I was stuck on like, oh my gosh, like I need to do it. And now in a weird way, I feel like I'm figuring out how to do things myself. And like, how do I explain this? I'm figuring out how I don't have to rely on a bunch of people to get my things done.
Right.
But when the time is right or the energy matches up or I know I need to delegate, I know how to more appropriately approach those circumstances.
Right.
Does that make sense? Did
I
just ramble?
Makes sense.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Because
110%.
There's a balance of like, I do think there's some truth to like the classic, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself, because nobody's going to do the thing
you do
the
have to
way.
Take the bull
yes,
by the horns.
exactly.
Yeah,
you have to lead it because no one is going to know what's in your brain or your heart or whatever it is. So you do have to like, I think that quote means you don't have to do everything yourself. Like you don't have to go shoot the video yourself and edit it and freaking do this, do that, blah, 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 record the songs.
I could do it, but I don't want to.
But you don't have to.
I don't want
That's
to,
when you build a team. That's when you delegate and you understand, hey, I maybe could turn a camera on and point it at myself, but I'd much rather someone else's vision on that. You know what I mean? Like, I'd much rather have somebody else do that. And somebody else because they care about that. So that now fits in to my kind of cycle and machine that I'm building. Where, again, on the cliche quote of if you want something done right, do it yourself, doesn't mean you do it all on your own. That means you, like you said, take the bull by the horns. You take the helm of leadership.
Yep.
And then you can delegate those things of like, listen, my vision is what I'm quote unquote doing myself. I am believing in myself that I'm going to do it.
Right.
But I understand that,
I'm gonna crush that video shoot.
Exactly. But I can't do it without a crew.
Yeah.
Or I can't do this without this, or I can't do this without that aspect. And understanding that it's not all on your shoulders. You can captain the ship, but you cannot run the whole ship.
That is so true.
And I, in the last like 2 years, I would say have actually understood that.
Yeah.
You know, while over the years of being self-employed and learning the creative world of business and all that sort of stuff, there's always ups and downs. There's people you put trust in and it doesn't work, or there's things you try and it doesn't work out, and all that sort of stuff. There's the failures. There's, I went through a phase where I was like, freelancing is so hard, I don't want to do it anymore. I was going to quit. I was going to be done, completely done. But then I was like, wait, what can I actually do? How can I answer these problems with solutions and not just identifying the problems? Because we're really good at that, right? We're all really good at that. Of like, this thing sucks and it sucks because of this. And it's like, awesome.
Well, what's the solution?
What is the solution? And once I started identifying those things,
I'm the solution person.
Yes. And then just like we're saying, I know I'm talking in circles, and I'm so sorry, everyone listening.
This is beautiful.
But like,
holy crap!
It's when you identify that sort of thing of like, no, maybe there is a way to do this. You can then bring the people in, or build the team, or find the belief from somebody else to help you figure those things out.
Yeah.
And that, I feel like, is like what I'm constantly learning of like, okay, it doesn't all have to be on your shoulders.
Yeah.
You can still make something happen, but you have to figure out, and it's so important, and I love that you said it, figuring out your why. Mm-hmm. What is your why? Like my core piece to so many things that I do, because like I do 100 different things and I enjoy doing 100 different things. But what that causes sometimes is maybe confusion from the outside, where people are like, I don't understand what all you do. I have been able to clarify.
I love it though.
I've been able to clarify my why. And then like if I'm stripping it down to like the tiniest piece, I love storytelling. So
that fits into wow.
So that means, well, of course I get to storytell on a podcast. So I like doing a podcast. And then, well, I really like storytelling in general, and there's certain stories that I think need told in a certain way. So now I can capture that in video, and even digging that even deeper, there's certain ways you can tell a story in B-roll in a music video.
Oh my
But there's also certain stories that I want to tell through actual movie making. So cool, I'm going to make a short film that's this, and then I can also do B-roll for a music video that's this. Or the same way that I can tell a story through a photo or a design or a comedy series idea that I have, and I can also do that and a horror movie at the exact same time because it all feeds back, no matter whether it's commercial work, whether it's music videos, whether it's podcasting, whether it's whatever. The core thing that ties all these things together is me.
Yep.
And at my root, I know that my why is storytelling.
Stories.
So I understand how I can take these 100 things on and get out of it or give to it what I want.
That is so amazing.
Am I making sense? Like, I feel like I'm just like on the, freaking do creative stuff, blah, blah, blah. But like,
no, I feel like, man, if people knew that going into everything, oh my gosh. If we really knew why we were here and what we were supposed to be doing, how much of an impact would we make on the world? I know that sounds really deep and like...
No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
You know what I mean? If every person did their why and what they feel like they're supposed to contribute to the world, and I'm not saying it always has to be creative, but there's people who are really good teachers. And I'm just like, wow, that is what you're supposed to be doing, hands down, because you're so encouraging and amazing. If more of us did that, what a beautiful world. So I just get to do that with music, you know what I mean? And I don't know. And tell the story of my life through these monuments, which are my songs. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're like little monuments of the things I've been through. So
do you think that a lot of this is, and I'm sure I know the answer is yes, but I'm more so just like trying to give you the floor so you can like say some amazing things, but like,
oh my gosh.
But like, do you think a lot of this is people are envisioning themselves as mice, but they're in this like huge cage that actually they can just like slide right through, and they find out that when they get out, they're actually a lion, you know? Like it's you're viewing yourself as this, and you're not assuming that you can make an impact on the world at
oh my gosh, that was such a good image.
The world at large, or just the people around you, or
we're all I think it's the monster, confronting the monster. The monster is what makes us feel small and insignificant. Like so many times we almost treat our monster or our inner critic like our best friend. Instead of like silencing that voice, we listen more to our inner critic that tells us we're small and insignificant and not good enough. We listen to that voice more than the people that matter in our lives. You know what I mean? That build us up and give us that courage to be that lion and to take control of the story of our life. But we live in this very small way. But what if, man, we could bust out of that cage and be the lion, be bold enough to sing, you know what I mean? In these crazy situations, be bold enough and to dream bigger than we could even dream for ourselves. I couldn't dream that my songs would be featured on MTV and that I'd be getting emails from somebody from Paramount Music, or not Music Studios. Thank you. I'm like, what the heck? Is this my life? But it's just me not being afraid anymore and not letting the monster's voice be the loudest voice. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think your inner critic's there to try to make you feel, or to try to protect yourself. Like, it's your brain, right? Trying to say, I don't want you to get hurt psychologically, so just think about doing this. Think about saying yes. Don't say yes right away. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, no, I'm not listening to that voice first. I'll take it into consideration, but I'm not going to just listen to that flat out anymore. I'm going to be like, no, what's going to help me grow? What's going to help me be a better person? And chase that down, not listen to the monster. So.
Yes, I love that. You're getting me so excited about it. I'm just like, yes, I can freaking do anything. So, okay, let's I want to dig into that a little bit because, again, I think all this is so valuable for people to hear. Like, What are, if any, I don't know, are there any like practices that throughout all of this time, as you're now sitting here and you're saying, I can identify when I need to flick the monster off my shoulder, I can identify when my self-talk isn't the best it could be. Were there things you've picked up along the way that are like almost practical advice pieces where you're like, listen, when I
get panicky and I'm like,
right. Like, and when that happens, I do this or practicing better self-talk and any of those sort of things. Cause I think the positive thought muscle in your brain is a muscle that needs to be worked out. You're not just going to wake up one day and be like, I feel pretty good, and anything that comes my way, I can knock it down.
Do this.
You have to work that out.
It's not toxic positivity, because I think there is a toxic positivity that doesn't.
Oh, we can do a whole episode about toxic positivity.
Like, you're not addressing your actual feelings, and you're just brushing over them with positive self-talk, because I think you should always face up to it, whatever that fear is, and call it out for what it is. See it for what it is, and then tell yourself, but I've been here before. I've overcome this before. I can do it again. You know what I mean? So it's like you're not denying that you're super scared to sing in front of 1,000 people, because that is a real thing. Like, that's super scary, okay? Anybody who says that they're not scared, they're lying. Well, some people, I don't know. But I have not died once, just so you know. I've played in front of a couple thousand people and I've never died. So I know that to be true, and I can tell my brain that. It's almost like retraining the pathways in your brain. Like, okay, I've never died from singing in front of 1,000 people. I'm going to be okay. Okay, yeah, some people might not like my music, and that's a reality, but some people might. Some people might resonate so much, and it's exactly what they need to hear to get through this specific moment. So I got to do this for them. People, not everyone's going to like me. That's just reality.
Right.
But some will, and some will resonate. And that's the people I'm doing this for. And so retraining your brain to face up to the fear. Call it out for what it is. And then say, you know what? That's true, but I'm going to do it. Even if I'm a little bit afraid, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to come on the other side and be stronger and be a better performer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's getting out of those comfort zones, just like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, we could stay in a box and stay in a cage like we were talking about. And it does feel safe, right? To be in the cage. It feels kind of safe. And you don't have to do anything unexpected, and you could do your day-to-day average life, but what fun is that? I'm like, break me out of the box, man. I'm ready to experience life. I think, too, having that, death sentence almost, I don't know, it's made me view life differently, and I'm like, the limitations that I had on myself before, I'm not doing that anymore. You know what I mean? I don't want that. Throw off the limitations. So
yeah, I mean, you literally were earlier in your story. You said
yeah, a couple of times. I mean,
yeah,
there was a few moments where the doctor was like, if she doesn't turn it around, she's not going to make it through this.
And what's so wild to me is, I mean, you said it yourself. You were telling yourself that you were done.
Yeah,
and not just done dealing with it, but done.
Yeah.
And so it's like you have genuinely faced that.
Yep.
And can now
my
sit
family
here
honestly pulled me through that. That was not on my own strengths. I was like, see you guys. I cannot fight anymore. But my family, they were right there, holding my hand. They were with me through it all, helping me through that. So sometimes we are a little weak, and it's okay to ask for help. So if you can't deal with it on your own, if you're dealing with crippling anxiety and panic attacks, talk to somebody. There's so much shame, I think, too, around counseling. I don't know why there is, because it's the most amazing thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or friends, going deep with friends. If you have some trusted friends that you can have deep conversations with, or family members that you can trust to just help you through those hard moments. I think that's helpful.
I'm going to give a silly comparison here for a second, but even hearing you explain that of I was done. I mean, and you're done being alive, right? You could not fight
Couldn't,
anymore.
man.
And you said your family was there to help guide you through that. There's, in a positive
Community.
way, and I think in a positive way, I want to be devil's advocate for that and say 100% they helped get you through that. But what they also helped you do is find the single tiny remaining ember inside of you that was still there.
Yep.
That then they reignited that figurative flame. And like
you can do this, Heather. And I'm like, can I though? Okay, I think I can.
And so then it becomes a collection of like 100% they were there for you. Like, I mean, if you were alone in that situation, I cannot imagine how that would feel. Because you probably already felt super alone. You were going through it. No one else, like, really is technically. And I always, like, I feel like maybe this was, like, drilled into me as a child. Because growing up, one of my favorite movies was The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, my gosh. That's one of my favorites.
Look at that. We're becoming better and better friends. This is great.
Yellow Brick Road, man.
So
significant.
The idea at the end, spoilers, folks. If you haven't seen Wizard of Oz at this point, like, you can't get mad at me spoiling it. There's no spoilers anymore. But the ending idea of, I needed a heart and I needed a brain and I needed to go home and I needed courage. And then the idea being you had it in you all along. Now they together found those things and survived through the journey that they were on. So that is the family aspect, the community aspect, the home idea. You were home the whole time. It was these people, these people believing in you and helping you and guiding you through these things. And even the things that everybody else didn't think that they had, they showed that they had it. And I don't even know where I was like going with that, but like the idea is so like, true, I feel like we all have. And I'm getting like high on the like positivity thinking here thing here. Like,
You're welcome. Just bring me in if you need a dose. Just kidding.
Yeah, I'm getting real positive podcast guy here. But like, I truly believe that even the people at their lowest lows or the worst of worst or whatever, you still, even if literally there's nothing, even if you have nothing, I always am a firm believer, and maybe I'm dumb for thinking this, but I always think that even when everything has been stripped, there is still even the tiniest remaining thing that you still have in you. And it might take someone else fanning that flame.
On it, like, you got this, Heather.
You know what I mean? Whether it's literally physically holding your hand or being there on your possible deathbed or reminding you to believe in yourself or freaking giving advice when you ask for it or whatever it is, like, any of those things, like, it can take someone fanning that flame. But I wish more people would identify that even when you feel like you don't have any of that and you're not doing anything daily to, push yourself forward or whatever, like you get so down on yourself, it is still in you. And I know it's such a silly comparison to do the Wizard of Oz thing, but like that's such a like up in your face example of like, it's not just this whimsical movie, it's something that's stuck in my mind. And I don't know if subconsciously that's done something for me, but like I'm just thinking of it right now as we're explaining this story. Like 100% the people around you can unlock those things for you and show you
who you are.
Yes, but I think that it's always in there, and whether you unlock it or not is a whole other thing, but I think it's there.
And the analogy of them following the yellow brick road to arrive at the Emerald City. But the Emerald City was just really a mirage.
Yep.
They already had everything they needed within them and between them. I think in the music industry, it's the same way. We think that there's this magical yellow brick road to get, or like a filmmaker, like you, there's a magical yellow brick road that will lead me to Hollywood or wherever that is, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or to Nashville. You don't need to go to Nashville these days. You don't need to go to Hollywood. You can make amazing stuff right here in Columbus, right where you're at, with a team of people on the road and get to where you need to be. So
I feel like
Well, look at us with our Wizard of Oz
I know, right? I was gonna drop one more. I was gonna be like, I feel like
so true though.
You can kind of like
all the time.
You can kind of build your Emerald City anywhere on the Yellow Brick Road. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
There it is. Like you can.
And don't fall asleep in the poppy field along the way.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't.
A lot of people quit before they get there too, and I think a couple times I felt like I wanted to quit, but I'm glad that I didn't. That I stayed on the road and. Yeah, there's a couple times I almost got taken out by life, but you can always try again. There's like 100 chances,
Yeah.
Endless lives in this life. No.
Man, we have somehow already gotten up there in time so quickly, and I don't even know. I feel like there's so many more things that we could talk about. So before we trail into like wrapping up the show, is there any big parts of this story that we've missed? Because I could see there like.
I think that I guess what we could talk about now is like now that I'm in Columbus, after being out of the scene and then coming back in, I'm feeling a little nervous again. Here we go again, like feeling super nervous, coming back in, but excited at the same time, just to see what happens. I'm gonna. I think start a Columbus songwriter. I already have a C-Bus songwriter circle Instagram handle. I'm ready. It's going to happen. Where I want to invite some musicians to just share their stories and music at a showcase, to just get to know the artists in the community. And just like through this podcast, you're getting to know people. That's how I feel like I can get to know some musicians in the area. So I don't know, connect with me if you're in Columbus and you're an artist or a musician.
That was literally going to be my next question, and you already answered. It was like, we've caught up the timeline as long as there's no big things of, that we're forgetting along the way.
There's a lot happening. I mean, I'm always working on music and stuff, but
of course,
I think I'm just trying to find my place here, and find where I belong here. I don't know.
And I'm sure even though you're kind of like, you're feeling like that scared mouse again, maybe, you still know that like, you still got that lion in you. And now you've learned so much from all of this. Even though there's a new challenge, you're probably feeling way more equipped for that challenge.
Definitely. I feel like, gosh, I ran the songwriter circle for like 2 years. And so I could really replicate that here and it would be amazing, So I think I'm just like, I'm anxious to get back out there and start doing music here again, but just trying to find my place,
Has there been, I guess even what has it been like kind of putting those shoes back on and stepping in? Like, yes, it's a new town,
weird.
But like, even getting back into the motions of like, I'm releasing music and I'm doing these things and I'm getting licensing deals and all this sort of stuff. Like, what has that been like as you kind of like shift forward, I guess?
Yeah, it's been incredible because, how it was so hard for me when I was beginning with the music licensing companies and I only heard back from one. Well, now I'm becoming more reputable and people know about me in the music licensing world. So I'm literally with like, I think 8 or 10 music licensing companies that are pitching my music. Some are international. Like I just heard some of my songs were pitched for like a Chinese car commercial. I'm like, let's do it. I'm down tomorrow. Let's do this.
That's so sick.
And I don't know, but at the same time, it makes me, okay. One thing in the music licensing world is like, okay, you get one sync and then you feel like you have to get another one and then another, you know what I mean? To keep the ball rolling. So I'm like, what music can I create to be better than what I did before? So there's a little bit of that pressure, but at the same time, just being creative and letting myself just go for it and create whatever I want, and to have the satisfaction that it's what is needed. You know what I mean? In the industry, that I'm not off base, especially since all of my songs are getting accepted into these catalogs. So I'm like, I must be doing something right if they're like accepting my music. But
yeah. Okay, so deeper question off of that is whether it's as a mom, a friend, a musician, a fellow creative, a whatever you are doing, whatever path you're taking, what is your why? What is your hope to
This is so good.
What do you want to kind of like not leave behind, but just like what do you want that legacy to be? Like what are you hoping that like, hey, when people think of Heather, they think of this?
Okay, you ready? I literally want people to experience hope and encouragement through my music. Like when they listen to a Heather Evans track, they're probably at a low place and they're like, I just need some positivity in my life. You know what I'm talking about? So I really want to be that positive force in people's life and positive voice. And not all my songs are super happy, but they always like point to a hopeful place. Like I wrote a song called Hold On Through the Night for my son who was having panic attacks, you know. And I would just say like, hey, fix your eyes on the horizon. It's going to be all right. Like the sun's going to rise tomorrow and you're going to feel better, you know, in the morning. There's just this hopeful anthem for him. And he literally would like play it on loop in that time when he was just dealing with anxiety. And that's honestly all you can hope for as an artist, is that people turn to your music for like comfort and hope and for a bit of encouragement and positivity. So that's what I want to do. And like, just sprinkle that everywhere I go. Any opportunity I play a show, when I go in there, I'm encouraging the sound guy. I'm like high-fiving the guy who's at the door guy. I'm getting to know the bartender. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going not just for myself, but for other people. And it's like, okay, who's going to be in the audience tonight? What are they going to need? What do they need? Like, people need hope right now. We're all like walking around in darkness. And if I can like wake them up out of that, you know what I mean? Just that zombie feeling of like not being inspired or discouraged. There's so much discouragement too that I hear from people. It's like if I can like snap people out of it, even for a moment, I think I've done my job as an artist. So
yeah, man. Well, you have made me so stoked on everything just sitting and having this entire conversation. So I would assume that anybody listening or watching this, there's no way they don't feel the same. This, like, you shared so many valuable things, whether it was advice, whether it's pieces of your story, whatever it is. Like, I feel like for sure you are on your way to making those impact, and you're already making them. Realistically, it's not like, oh, eventually you'll do it. I would safely assume you are making those things happen right now.
Thanks, man.
So before we officially wrap up, final question. I ask the same question at the end of every episode. And I cannot wait to hear what you have to say for this one. No. Lots of pressure. I'm building it up so big, putting all the pressure.
Like crickets.
Yeah, you're like, I really don't know. I have nothing else to say. So right now, I want you to pretend like everyone, everywhere, in the entire world, if you want to talk to aliens, we'll say the universe too. Everywhere.
Aliens.
Everyone is listening to us talk right now. So you have a live mic that is connected to everyone in the world, and you get to share something with them. What is it that you're telling everybody?
Okay, you ready? It's never too late. I've had so many game over moments that I thought, like, I'm done for. It's over. It's never too late to try again, to dream bigger. The sky's the limit, you know, and don't let your inner voice and your inner monster stop you from achieving those dreams that are in your head and in your heart, and go after it, because we only get this one life, right? Like, we only get this moment, even like right now. So go after those things in your heart.
I love it. Heather, thank you so much for doing
Ross.
this.
I feel like we're like best friends.
I
shared my whole life story with you.
I hope you feel like we're best friends, because I want to be best friends.
The best therapist. No.
Listen,
Podcast therapy with Ross.
Listen, that is my favorite compliment to hear from people.
Yeah.
It's like we'll wrap up the episode and we'll stop and they'll be like, there's so many times people have been like, that felt like a therapy session, and I'm like, that's so sick. I'm like, that's so good. That's what I want this to be, though. I don't want it to be a weird Q&A. I don't want it to be some like uncomfortable like before the last near 2 hours, we didn't know each other that well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And of course, there's my whole side of the story that
I know,
you gotta get to know at some point.
After the microphones turn off, we'll find out now.
But, all we had between us was a Zoom call talking about business, technically.
Yep.
And now we just got to sit down. And like I said before we started rolling, this is my cheat code to make new friends and get to know people. And I am so freaking happy that you were down and interested to do this. I am genuinely, even just from this one conversation, whether we end up creating stuff or whatever, it doesn't matter. I am genuinely thankful to have met you. I am so happy that we got to have this conversation. So let's wrap it up. Let's put the plugs and promotion hat back on as we're officially wrapping up.
I'm really good at this part.
We've been talking about the music this whole time.
Yes.
Or anything else that you want anybody to check out. Where can they find you around the internet if they want to be your friend as bad as I do?
Come on, get on over.
Where can they go find you to talk to you about all the things, and of course, go check out the music as well?
Yeah, it's just Heather Evans Music everywhere. So Facebook, Heather Evans Music, Instagram, Heather Evans Music, and my website is Heather Evans Music. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
I have a feeling. Whether there maybe there'll be some people who are too scared to reach out, but I have a feeling
reach out.
Even if it's from a distance in the interwebs, I feel like you're going to be making a lot of new friends after this.
I hope so. Yeah, definitely reach out or email me if something I said, impacted you. I love to hear that stuff. So
that was freaking awesome. That's it. We're done. We made a podcast. We did a freaking podcast. Heather, thank you so freaking much.
Thank you, Ross. It was a good time. Good hang.
That was freaking a blast. That was a blast.
I'm sorry. I'm just like, let me tell you my whole life story.
That's what this is for.
I know, right?
That's what
I heard somebody else say that.
Okay, there it was. Like I said, an absolutely amazing conversation that I am very thankful to have had. Again, huge thanks goes out to Heather for opening up and talking about everything that she did. It's amazing to hear her outlook on life and creativity and everything, really, after being through what she's been through. And if you couldn't feel it through the audio, I mean, she is seriously an absolute joy to be around. Somebody that I hope I can stay connected and stay friends with. So if you want to stay connected with Heather, of course, make sure to follow her around social. Definitely check out her amazing music. Hit her up if you feel like it. If you enjoyed her story or connected to it in any way, I definitely implore you to let her know. Or hey, if you're like me and you would just like to be her friend, and have her there as that motivational like friend that's there in your corner who's gonna make you feel great about your decisions or help you walk through them. I feel like she's gonna be there for that too. So she's there to pick people up when they're feeling down if you couldn't get that sense through this episode. So yeah, maybe hit her up for that too. Of course, just remember that you will be waiting in line behind me if you do that, of course. So all in all, if you like the episode, say something about it, share it around the net, tag Heather, tag me, tag the show. You know how it goes by now. We're almost 40 episodes deep, folks. Like, share, subscribe, follow, everything that everyone who creates something asks you to do. You know the drill by now. So that's it. I absolutely loved this episode. I loved connecting with Heather like I did here. And of course, as always, I'll be back next episode to do the same thing with a brand new guest that you may or may not know of, sharing their story that you for sure never heard.